control everything without controlling
the Geek Speak Radio Show on TalkZone.com.
And we're back on the Geek Speak Radio Show, talking to Paul Harding. Let's go to, you also do work as a cover artist, correct? How'd you get into that?
I do. I was living in New York City, and you kind of meet the right people. The same guy who introduced me to Mezco in the beginning basically got me started doing book covers, too. So just good people out there, man. Kirk Benshoff, great guy.
What covers have you worked on?
Well, I just wrapped up this Demonata series, and it's a New York Times best-selling horror series by Darren Shan, and he did the just before that he did the Cirque du Freak series, which got turned into a movie. I think, which I didn't see it, but
yeah, me either.
It's called The Vampire's Assistant. I think that's what they named it.
Yeah, and Josh Hutcherson, like I said, who was supposed to be Spider-Man but isn't.
Yep. So I'm not exactly sure how well that movie did, but we'll probably decide on whether the Demonata series gets made. But it's an interesting series, 10 books in all, so they got information.
Yeah, that's on Paul's website, and that's all linked up on GeekSpeakRadioShow.com, by the way, if you guys want to take a look at it. Go ahead, Paul. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, now I'm doing a little bit of work for Top Cow Comics, which I can't really get into, but I've always wanted to get into comics, so I'm pushing my way in there, too. See how that works out. Which
one do you prefer more, sculpting the action figures or drawing the covers?
I don't know. I think my preference would have to be, I really need to do both, because it's just such a balance, the two things that I really like doing. One side of my studio is where I'll draw and, I'll color digitally and things like that, and I'll also sculpt digitally, and then I'll turn my chair around and I'll be sculpting, with my hands too. I just need to be doing both things.
Who or what do you draw inspiration from?
I mean, I've been really lucky recently to be working with some of my favorite artists out there, which I never expected to do. One guy, Gary Frank, who did this great Superman series, he's still working on it. I got to do a statue based on some of his work. Prior to that, I did a Frank Quitely version of a Batman black and white statue, which, I'm a huge fan of that guy. He worked on All-Star Superman comic book, which was probably one of the greatest comics I think I've ever looked at. In terms of other guys like Mike Deodato, he's amazing. He's one of my favorite artists. He does Avengers. Francis Lenoyu. All these contemporary guys, a lot of the older guys too, definitely. But I could go on and on.
Yeah, and then this question, this is like, they would ask you or me, who's your favorite kid? Do you have a favorite cover or action figure that you've sculpted or drawn?
Favorite action figure? I don't know. Back in the day, I did this extreme Hellboy figure for Mezco. And it might not be my best work, but it was like 100% me, where I was just doing my spin on Hellboy, kind of before the first movie came out. And I like that figure a lot, just because it kind of got me into the whole superhero industry. It got me transitioning out of the vinyl business, like the urban vinyl side of things. So, yeah, I like that toy a lot.
Do you have a favorite cover that you've drawn?
I don't know. I tend not to love my stuff too much. So, yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite, but I enjoyed working on those Demonata covers.
Now, on your website, which again is linked up on GeekSpeakRadioShow.com, there is a very cool picture of an awesome Joker figure, based not on the Heath Ledger Joker, but on the Arkham Asylum video game Joker. How did you stay away from the Heath Ledger Joker, of course, and then from classic interpretations from the comic books?
Yeah, with that Joker figure and other figures, there's so many years in my head of looking at Joker drawings, and I don't know how many times I've drawn the Joker, hundreds probably. And yeah, I try not to let all that stuff get out onto for instance, onto that Joker action figure, because that had to be, that was based on the video game, like 100%. So it had to stay true to the game, but I think at the same time, you know, you got to put your own love into it for the character, and I really love that character. So
you're talking about the Arkham Asylum video game? Yeah,
the Poison Ivy for Series 2 on that one too.
Yeah. Is there a figure that you haven't done that you'd love to work on?
There's probably a whole bunch of villains that I really need to work on. So what comes to mind, I always want to do a Thanos figure or statue. Darkseid, I love those guys. When you're doing the villains, like the subtleties that you have to incorporate can tend to be completely different. You know, if I was doing a Darkseid figure versus a Superman figure, for instance, you know, you really have to discipline yourself more with the Superman because you want to. He's kind of a vanilla character. You really have to stay true to what people expect about Superman. But if you get a big, ugly villain, you can put so much more detail in there, and you know you can do the subtleties in a different way. So it can be more exciting to do, you know, big, ugly monsters, for sure.
So we're talking to Paul Harding, who sculpts all the action figures that are out there. I know you also work with Hasbro. What did you sculpt for them?
I think I did at least 40 or 50 action figures for Hasbro right when they got the Marvel license. I basically transferred. I was a freelancer, but I was working for Toy Biz, and I basically made the transition to working for Hasbro. It wasn't as easy as just making the transition. I had to find the right people. I had to hunt them down, you know, get my foot in the door that way. But yeah, I think I started right off doing the Icon series for Hasbro, and those were the 12-inch action figures. And I did Silver Surfer and the Human Torch and Cyclops and Jean Grey and Thor, and yeah, and then I started doing a lot more of the 6-inch stuff for them, like Daredevil, the Black Knight, and She-Hulk, and Black Bolt, and Doc Samson, and a bunch of Punishers. And then we basically started transitioning down into the 4-inch figures, and yeah, I did a few of those, not too many.
If you ever asked, would you ever want to work on the any G.I. Joe figures?
I have done a little bit of G.I. Joe stuff. I did some of the 25th anniversary heads. I don't know if you guys even know what I'm talking about, but I think all I did was Scarlet and the Baroness, their heads for the relaunch of the new G.I. Joe stuff, and that was probably like 3 years ago, I think. So yeah, I mean, and speaking of G.I. Joe, the stuff that they're dropping right now is amazing. I've had nothing to do with it, but I think it's the Hunt for Cobra or whatever it's called, but those new ones are sick.
Yeah, I have been collecting them again, just like we used to when you and I were younger. So again, we're talking to Paul Harding. He designs and sculpts the action figures. Paul, thanks a lot for taking the time to come on the Geek Speak Radio Show with us.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, his website is linked up to us. If you want to go there directly, it's hardingdesigns.com. Let's move on now. We talked to the guy who designs the action figures. How about we talk to somebody who displays the action figures? There's actually a museum that shows off not just Paul's work, but everybody else's that's come before him and after. Let's take a break, come back, and we'll go to a museum.
Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.